Morning, everybody. It is 8:10 a.m. September 5th. Welcome to my channel. Markets yesterday pushed out of ultimate bounds. All right, that 64.70 level. Remember, I said big moves come from ultimate balance. Now, yesterday, intraday, the market was like lollygagging around that 64.80, 64.70, and I was like, oh man. And the internals weren't super strong. However, the top sectors were all in the green. Okay. And then eventually what happened was we pushed up, hit the 6480s, and we held the 6480s, which used to be a composite high volume node. Okay. Then midday, I actually was switching to look for a long. And because I was like, all right, I think this might be short covering, and the melt up was going to probably happen. The only thing is my risk to reward. I was like, what do I mean, it would have worked. I was looking at a 64.80 long. I got the pullback to 64.80. I would have had a 3 point stop. I was looking at like 91s. Um, I would have get hit. I would have got hit, and then obviously I would have kept going, but I would have taken my 3-1. But I just didn't like the way the market was moving. It was after lunch, and I had to let that one go, even though I was stalking it and I had no trades. And then what ensued from that was just this short covering, and we almost went up to all-time highs in the SPY. In futures overnight, we did make all-time highs. And now I'm seeing today we have non-farm payrolls and unemployment, and I just saw BLS is saying they're having technical difficulties, so I'm not sure if they're going to come out exactly at 8:30. And what else happened is helping these markets this morning is Broadcom, ticker AVGO, had blowout earnings, and they're up almost 12.60%, almost over 12.5%, put it that way. Okay. So they also mentioned we'll get into the news. They also mentioned something specific about AI, and we'll go over it in a second. But Broadcom, I know it's not talked about a lot, but it's actually a decent weight in the QQQ and the SPY and the semis. It is a decent weight. And right now, as I'm speaking, semiconductors are up over 1.11%. Okay, so that's spurring along the QQQ. Now QQQ is still not at all-time highs, right? Because it was structurally weaker. All right, and this is pretty crazy because on Tuesday I showed you guys we hit the expected move to the downside in the SPX, and I was just like, okay, we just hit the expected move to the downside in the SPX. I'm like, wow, on Tuesday, right? Because that big gap down on Sunday. And just to show you that again, right here, my expected move indicator, right? That red line was the expected move for this Friday to the downside. We hit that on Tuesday, and that was all she wrote. So I think that's proof positive about this indicator that you can get free. I don't know how much more you can say about that. Now, being honest with you, I was like, wow, we just hit that on Tuesday? And I said it live when it was happening. I was like, wow, we just hit the expected move to the downside, and that was it. That was it. And we just ripped from that day. So whoever was short from here has felt a lot of pain. Okay? Pretty nuts. Okay? That's what we have going on right now. Markets are crazy. Now the volume, excuse me, is not the best this morning. I think we're waiting for the non-farm payrolls unemployment, but like it's on the low side compared to the previous days. Okay, I can show you the relative volume right here. We're at 88% of relative volume, 76% in the Nasdaq. That just changed on me to 91. But I mean, once the data comes out, we'll probably get some volatility. All right. Now let's get right into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets along supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the week. Of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. I also use Anchor VWAPs and my bread and butter, the market internals, that helps me know what's going on under the hood of the markets once it opens. Okay. I just mentioned my expected move indicator. It's free on my Discord. All right. That's also been a key thing. And of course, Bookmap, my new baby. That is a new way to look at the markets, and it just gives me a lot of confidence on executing trades with the right risk. All right. So that's a tool in my arsenal, in my Batman belt. All right. Now, as always, hopefully you subscribe. Set an alert. All right. Let me give you the market news, the economic calendar, right? The leaders and the laggards, basically the reasons why our market's doing what it's doing. Okay. I give you that service every morning. Let me be your cup of coffee, your tea, your water. Let me be your podcast in the morning, right? Forget about CNBC. That's a lot of fluff. I'm just going to give it to you real and tell you what's going on with the markets. Okay, so subscribe. Now, if you want more in depth with myself, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. There you will get all my intraday commentary. Okay, let's take a look. And I've been given lots of videos, audio messages of late. I really believe that that's top-notch commentary of what I'm giving. So like yesterday, let's see here. Yesterday. What was yesterday? That was 9/4. All right, so I was mentioning what I was seeing, gave an audio message, told you about the internals. I was stalking shorts at one point, and then I switched and I said, this market can keep getting stronger, then my short thesis is invalid. All right, I showed you guys the VPOC was migrating higher. That was bullish. And then I said, now I'm open to longs. And then I just talked about I didn't have a trade with 64.80. And the only reason was, if you see later in the day here, 64.80 was right here, right? And I was like, top of the range was like 87. I was like, what is my risk to reward here? There's supply above us. But, coming from ultimate balance, you get big moves. Okay? So, sign up. Enjoy me. All right? Now I think we're ready to get into futures. Watch list here. Let's see what's moving markets. We got Bitcoin. And this percentage always is off for some reason. Bitcoin's at 112. Ethereum's up 3.60%. Nasdaq's up 0.52. 30-year bonds are being bought. VIX is up 3.33. ES up 0.12. Gold is flat. Russell's flat. The Dow is down 0.26. Silver's down 0.27. The dollar's down 0.46. 10-year yield is down 0.70. And crude has been taking a bath as of late, down 1.20%. Okay? That's what's going on in futures. Now, we know we have data. I don't know if it's coming out on time yet. I got to look at that news again. But we'll just check in at the Mag 7 Plus here. All right, Broadcom up 13.13%. It is going even higher. Now, Broadcom's expected move to the upside, I believe, was like 333. So it's over its expected move. And sometimes when you shoot way over, ooh boy, that wasn't priced in. Okay, so monster move in Broadcom. That's going to help tech. Tesla up 2.06%. Coinbase up 1.32. Those are your leaders. All right. Now your little bit of laggards are Google down 0.29, JP Morgan down 0.37, Amazon down 0.44. Amazon had a nice move yesterday. Nvidia down 0.91. And look at that, boy. Boy. Now I don't know if Rosita was still in her puts, but that is good for her. I don't necessarily know why AMD is falling. Maybe she can tell me. But that is down 2.34%. I don't know exactly why right now. Let's see if there's anything here. Nope, I don't see anything right there. Maybe she's stuck in those puts. Not sure if she did. Not sure if she's here. But I know she was in puts. and that's pretty bearish what that's doing. That's just breaking a key level. So that is interesting. That Nvidia and AMD are pushing down. Broadcom is pushing up. Semis are up 1.09% with Nvidia and AMD down that bad. Interesting. Now there might be something in that of Broadcom that's going to take a chunk out of AMD and Nvidia. That I don't know that yet, but I'm going to guess maybe that's the reason. All right, top sectors. The only thing I'm seeing of the note is PepsiCo's down almost 1%. So that's a staple. That went up all the way up to like 154s with that one group investing a large stake in the company. People are probably going, all right, we're going back to all-time highs. Let me take some profits. Let's just chill out on the staples. All right, now let's look at more granular list here. Looks like DocuSign's up 7.56. Unity Software up 3.16. ASML, a semi up 2.61. All right, that's really all I see there. And then and the downside, woof, wow. I thought they were up. Was what I saw. That must have changed. Lululemon's getting destroyed. Down. They reported earnings. They're down 19.45%. Wow. I just saw that they were up. I guess that changed. Crisp Therapeutics up 3.6, down 3.68. Nike down 1.23. Maybe in sympathy with Lululemon retail, right? Wow. All right. Now, moving on to sectors. So interesting, right? I just showed you Nvidia and AMD are weak, but the semis are not weak. They're up 1.08%. Very interesting. Technology up 0.44, even with Nvidia and AMD down. Okay. Now, who's lagging here? A little healthcare, a little financials, and energy. Okay, energy. All right, let's move on to our economic calendar and see if these are actually going to come out. If the BLS is still going to push these out on time. Hold on a second here. Really? Am I not the right screen? I am not on the right screen. Okay. Give me 1 second here, folks. Give me 1 second. Sometimes you have to give this a kickstart here. Apologize for that. Don't know why that's... Oh, I know why. Ugh, sorry. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. We'll get it. We'll get it. I just want to... Here we go. Alrighty. We're good. We're good. We're good. Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. All right. Economic calendar. So we got non-farm payrolls today. That is not a good number. 75K is expected. That is on the low side. Okay. Now we've had poor employment information this week. Jolts jobs. Yesterday there were some. I forget what it was. Anyway, job market is deteriorating. That is good for cuts, right? So unemployment today is expected to go to 4.3, which is a rise of 0.1. Okay. So they're expecting a rise in unemployment today. Let's see what happens. All right. Let's go to 2 stars. So, yeah. I don't know, again, if this is still being delayed. All right. Now, let's look at the juice here. I'm going to see if the BLS is still having issues here. It says the BLS is experiencing technical difficulties ahead of the non-farm payrolls at 8:30. BLS data at 8 o'clock. Data retrieval tools are not available on the website. I don't know if the, let's see, equities climb has not been built. That NFP report will set the stage for the Fed to restart cutting. Yeah, all right. We'll see. We'll see if this still come out. I don't know. All right, let's get into some news here. Stock news. Broadcom Shares jumped, driven by the chipmaker's strong guidance for the current quarter and reports of his partnership with ChatGPT maker OpenAI. Boom, there you go. Maybe it's taken some share away from, I don't know, why Nvidia, and maybe that's it. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on why that is. Lululemon. Oh, Lululemon did share. I thought I saw they were. I saw over 18%, but shares slumped over 18% after the athletic apparel retailer's profit beat for the second quarter was eclipsed by a full-year guidance cut, given weakness into its business. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. DocuSign rose after the software name lifted its full-year billings outlook. All right. Let's move on here to some more news. Tesla to award Musk $1 trillion if company achieves some stiff targets. Lackluster U.S. job growth anticipated in August focus on revisions. Forecast for tepid U.S. job growth in August and a rise in unemployment to 4.3. If accurate, would confirm a softening labor market and seal the case for an interest rate cut. All right. Broadcom shares rally on new AI deal. Okay. Trump signs order to bring lower Japanese auto tariffs into effect. Now, we'll look at maybe there's more about Broadcom. The firm's shares jumped in pre-market trading after the chipmaker unveiled a blockbuster 10 billion AI chip order from a new customer, fueling optimism about its strategy to design custom chips, adding to momentum for the chipmaker. CEO Hock Tan, who has led Broadcom to nearly 2 decades and steered it to the center of an AI boom, announced he would stay at the helm for at least 5 more years. Broadcom's latest deal has fueled speculation that OpenAI is the unnamed customer, following a Financial Times report that the ChatGPT maker is working with Broadcom to develop its own custom AI chips. That's the only thing I could think that's going to take market share away from NVIDIA and AMD. That's the only thing I could think why the negative is there. Anybody want to tell me otherwise, then please give me that news. Broadcom, Jeffries raised its target price to 350 from 315, citing upbeat revenue from a new 10 billion AI chip order. All right, that is pretty big for that stock. It sucks. I remember when this stock dipped to I think 160s. I was like, ooh, maybe I should buy some Broadcom, and well, I regret that now. That's how it always is, right? Okay, let's look if there's any upgrades, downgrades today. This has not been the best. We have news coming out in 2 minutes. The S&P 500 is pulling back a little bit as I'm speaking. So ASML got an upgrade. That's where they're up. All right. What else here? Downgrades. We have anything to note? Lululemon downgraded twice. All right. That's what's going on there. All right, I think we can switch back to here. Not sure if this data release is coming out yet, but we have about 2 minutes. Maybe we look at the internals really quickly. This was yesterday's internals, and that thing just got stronger and stronger and stronger as the market went on. Okay. It just got stronger. Now, this started out a little like back and forth, and then it just got stronger, and then it just started. That was the short covering right in here. We went sideways for a while, and then boom, boom, boom. That was short covering. All right, all the greens, look at them. All the top 5 sectors, 6 sectors were green. That's very hard for the market to go down. I did point out these Valdez were not very strong off the beat. Usually don't get a big move, but that was the short covering. You can even see the ADDs are not that strong, but it was short covering. And market cap weight was what pushed our markets yesterday. Okay, so that is your market internals recap. Now we can go back to this data. Let's see if they're released. Let's see if it's released. S&P 500 is pulling back pretty nicely right now, right to a key support level on 65.14. All right, I'm gonna see if maybe this data comes out or not, and I don't know. Let's see. We'll definitely know from the big orders hitting the tape. I mean, like I said, S&P 500 is pulling back. We actually were above last week's highs. Now we're back into last week's range, and Nasdaq got some resistance at last week's highs as well. Let's see if the data comes out right now, and see, boom. All right, data must have released because the market's jumping. Okay. Oh my God. Woo! Those non-farm payrolls are horrendous. Horrendous. Wow. Wow. That is a huge miss in adding jobs. 75 expected, only 22,000 actual. Wow. And unemployment went up. So right now the initial reaction is the market is moving down. So that's interesting. Let's get to the hourly charts here. The initial reaction is the market moved down, even though this should make a cut come, right? With all this deteriorating job data. That is a huge miss. Okay, so I thought that would make the market go up. Okay, I thought that would make the market move up because of this is confirming the job, the employment data is just deteriorating, which makes a cut even more apparent to happen in September. However, we just made a huge move, and I don't, like I said, I don't know how much of this is baked in cuts now. We're pricing them in ahead of the numbers right now. Look, it's turning, it's starting to turn here. There it is. Okay, this is what I expect from these numbers. We should push higher. This is just making the Fed gonna cut. You don't want the unemployment to just get out of hand. Okay, that was, I believe that was a bear trap. Now I could be wrong. We just blew up this little demand zone here. All right. Now I don't know. Like I said, I think this makes this very tricky. I think it makes it very tricky because weak job data is good right now because it means cuts. But it also means there's something wrong, which is why we're going to cut. And I showed you guys the yield curve, the 3-month versus the 10-year, which anytime that uninverts, we get a recession. And that's when the Fed starts to cut. Usually we go into a recession. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I feel like this is the bear trap and we're starting to push up. Okay. Remember, NASDAQ has not hit all-time highs again. And let's just see. Let's see how this transpires here. I think this makes this tricky because we just moved pretty heavily all week. And futures made all-time highs. The SPX or the SPY hasn't yet, but this, like I said, it makes it tricky because I don't know. This move up could have priced in cuts. Are we just going to start ripping and ripping and ripping? I don't know. It's very difficult to predict the markets, why they're going to do what they do. Is this priced in now? I don't know. All right. I only got to follow price. I don't got to think about data too much. All right. I used to do that. I used to think I'm smarter than the markets in the beginning, thinking like, oh, that data is corrupt. That's not the real data. This market is going to get a rude awakening, and then you're just sitting here trying to think you're smarter than the markets. Markets move off the fake numbers. Markets don't care that the numbers are weird, they're fake, they're not real, whatever. It doesn't care. There's algos that drive the news. I'm sorry, other way around. The news drives the algos, and then they just start trading. Okay, so I don't know what to make of this right now. It's very difficult to even get a nice read because there's no overhead supply, big levels above us because there is none. We're pretty much at all-time highs. That always makes it a little difficult because you can't lean on too much. Okay, you can't lean on too much. Right? So what I would say here is I would be very careful. All right. What we're going to do now is I think we're going to get into, I don't think we need to look at hourly charts. Okay. I think we're going to look at some, let's look at some daily charts here. So if we go to the SPX, okay. Now remember, I already said we went to the expected move to the downside via my indicator, right? Now the expected move to the upside is 65.56. Okay, so we're really going to get into certain numbers here. Now the market is starting to really push now. Like I said, I believe that should be bullish, this news, and it right now is turning up to make all-time highs again. Okay, just to show you that's what's happening. So that was a little bear trap. Okay, now if we look at the SPX, the expected move to the upside is 65.56 today. Okay, so that would be right there. Okay, all right, keep that in note. Okay, now that's the SPX. Now if we're going to go to the SPY, look at the expected move to the upside, right? The expected move to the upside is 657.77. We're nowhere near that. Okay, we're nowhere near that. We didn't even really come that close to the expected move to the downside. But look at yesterday. Almost came up to the previous week's highs and the previous month's highs. Okay, which is crazy because we went all the way here and just ripped, right? So I don't know if today's going to be a blow off top. I have no clue. All right. I'm just giving it to you here. We were in last week's range. Now we're above last week's range at 651. We're all the way up here. We're gapping up. So if we open, we'll make all-time highs right here. Okay. So that's what's going on in SPY. Now, if we look at futures, you're going to see we're in all-time highs. Okay. These are all-time highs right here. Over last week's high, over last month's highs, we're making all-time highs. I did not think at the beginning of this week we were going to be making all-time highs at the end of the week. I have to say that. Being in September, wow. And I said that day, I go, is this going to be another buy the dip moment? I guess it was. Pretty crazy. That is insane. Okay? That is really insane. And we're coming out of ultimate balance, which means big move happened from there, right? Because the most pain is going to be felt when you push away from ultimate balance, be it to the downside or the upside. Okay, that level was your 64.70s right here. Once we broke that, look at that move and look at the move. Okay, that's just all these shorts going, uh-oh, they're in pain. Okay, like I said, can this be the blow off? I don't know. Okay, let's look at the Qs. Remember, Qs are not by the all-time highs at 583.32s. They have a downtrend line here. Well, we're above that now. Okay, so look what it did yesterday. We just basically managed to get with inside last week's range. Not last week's highs, last week's range. Okay, there's Friday's close, last Friday's close. So boom, you pushed up close to this trend line, right? Currently, we're at 579.30. We are, wow, 579.30. We are all the way up here, right here. There's kind of like a daily supply zone right there. So we're right there. Wow. Okay. That's pretty crazy. We're above this trend line. We're above, if you look, the last two weekly highs. Those are these oranges, right? That's the beauty of my chart. I can see those are the two last weekly highs, right? Even if I show you, does this go to the weeklies? No, it doesn't. All right, let me go back, cycle back. Okay, doesn't matter. I know it is. So we're up above the last 2 weeks. So 2 weeks in a row, now we're above their highs. That's pretty bullish. Okay, but like we have to see. This is relatively weaker, right? So if we go to this futures, you can see we're not at all-time highs. I can show you here in futures, we're right at last week's highs. So it's a little different than the Qs, right? We're right at last week's highs. Well, we are the same, but like, look, the futures are a little different. Okay, the previous week's highs are up here. That's fine. That's a previous monthly high right here. That's what we hit. Look at this resistance here. Look at this resistance here. big time resistance right here. I would say that level is 23845s. We hit that to the tick here. That is a previous monthly high, almost a previous weekly high. Okay, you have daily supply zone right here. So if I was going to draw a supply zone for you, for those of you know supply and demand, I would draw it like this, like this, like this, and like it would be around like that. So we're in this daily supply, right? We need to break that. Okay, that's that daily supply zone that we're in. So I don't think this would be easy to just cut through. Now, if we just look at it as far as supply and resistance, you got resistance, resistance, resistance. We're getting some resistance, right? All-time high is 240.68s, all the way up here. Like I said, will this be a blow off top? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Now, back to the Qs real quick. The expected move, okay? Expect to move to the upside for the Qs. 586.52. We are nowhere near that. Okay? We are nowhere near that. All right, just to let you guys know. Bond market, VIX, I don't really need to talk about that. The VIX is already down to the 15. The VIX went all the way up, I believe, to a 19. All right, so if we just look at the VIX real quick, because the bond market and the dollar aren't doing much, look at that crush here. We were all the way up to 19.4. We're all the way down to 15. Oof, that got crushed quick. Okay? That got crushed quick. I can't even speak. Here's what's going on. That is a big doji candle. And that, I think, is the confusion that I was saying earlier. That I said, how do you handle this? How do you handle this news? Right? Because it's good for cuts. It also shows, wait a minute, it's not really good. Right? And how do you handle this? Because we just moved quite a ways up. And it's September. Did we just price in the cuts? That's what I said. It's very hard to get a hold on what's happening. Look at that candle, is just what I said. The candle tells you everything. That is an indecisive hourly candle. Okay? Indecisive, big time. Okay, you can see this consolidation was all here. We whipped up all the, you trap basically shorts here and trap longs here. You could just see that in the candles. All the longs were taken out here. Long, 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 taken out. All the shorts taken out with that move. So who knows what happens from here? Who knows? I don't know. I'm trying to see if there's any really, well, there is some. Let's just look at the futures real quick. There's some nice movers here. Let's just look at it real quick. Ethereum up 3.71. Silver is up 1%. Before it was not. Gold up 0.91. 30-year bonds are being bought. So yields are going lower. Nasdaq's up. Russell's up. ES up. The Dow is flat. Okay, the Dow is flat. Dollar is down 0.71. Crude is down 1.28. The VIX is down 1.44. But check out that yield. That is significant. That, I have to say, is significant. We're down almost to a 4.0 yield. It's down 1.6%. That's going to help out mortgages. Okay. And so, with that being said, that is a pretty hefty move. We're going to look at that 10-year yield real quick. Because that is a significant move. Yes. There, we finally have something in the bond market. Remember, this is yields. This isn't the bond market. This is the yield. So, people are buying bonds. Look at this move. You finally broke this 4.13 yield and you're falling. Okay? So what that's going to do, okay, and I'm not sure, okay, I'm not sure. But if yields continue to fall, okay, that's very interesting. That yield curve might start to uninvert. Right? Because if the people are buying bonds, right, in short terms, are going to be less yields. I'm not sure. This is very significant, finally, a move in the 10-year yield. You've been in this range for so long. We haven't been down here since April 7th. Okay? So is this people buying bonds because they're anticipating something bad? Right? I don't know. I really don't know. All right. So I'm letting this kind of simmer out so I can get a better analysis for you guys. Okay. So that's significant. Yields are falling. Okay. The dollar is getting hit a little bit at this last month's lows. That's a big support that the dollar's at. Okay. So very, very interesting. All right. I think we can move on, folks. Let's get in and try to get some scenarios cooking here, because I want to give you some type of plan today, because like I said, I don't know how to read this. It's very difficult to read it. Okay. Give me 1 second here. All right, let's go to our market profile, volume profile. Okay. Let's do some analysis here, okay? Let me get my trusty marker out. Let's see here. And I am working on that video for my trade the other day. So hope to have that out probably today. So let's look. Okay, a bunch of distributions here in this profile. Man, distribution, right? So 64.50 actually became the new most traded price of the week. 64.70 was ultimate balance yesterday. Okay. Once we came out of ultimate balance, big moves happened. That's why that happened. Not surprising, right? We are at all-time highs right now. We do have a balanced profile in the overnights. Okay, it's pretty balanced. This is last week's highs. Can you believe we're above last week's highs? Who would have thought on Tuesday morning we would be above last week's highs? I don't think many people. Okay, so number one, gap fill. 65.16 is your gap fill. 65.16 is your gap fill. Now, what is notable in this profile here is I am going to make a range here. Okay. The most traded price of yesterday was all the way up at the top of the session around 65.11. Look at the volume. All right. You know those are longs. Okay. Those are longs. So that range that I put on there, which encompasses the overnight lows, the 605.02, 75s. Okay. Market needs to hold that. Okay. Because if you take that out, all right, you got the most traded price of the overnight right here. That's about 65.24s. 65.24s. If you were to lose those, all right, fill the gap, come down here, woo, you put longs on notice. But I don't know. Okay? I don't know. There is supply, which looks like it's going to get taken out here. It might have already did get, I think it did get taken out actually. Let's just look. Yeah, it did. All right, so there's really not supply here. I'm going to get rid of that now. Don't need that in my analysis. Okay. So, how do we play this? Now we're going to mark off some levels here. Your 50% retracement of yesterday is 64.86. Actually lines up with a demand zone and that 64.80 where I almost got long yesterday. Okay, and you have another demand here, right here. Okay. Now, we're at all-time highs, folks. I don't have a level above. That's what makes it a little like harder to be like, there's no resistance. Okay, there's no resistance. So, how we play this, all right? How how do we play it? Well, a big part of it's going to be market internals when the market opens, so I can see what's under the hood because this is not easy. Remember, I have to keep in mind we came from ultimate balance. Okay, I still think there's maybe some shorts that still have to get punished. Not sure. Okay, and we can just get a continuation today into the weekend. Not sure. Okay. Now, let's come up with new scenarios here, or some scenarios. Okay. I think that high is going to get broken right in front of us. Okay. So let's start off with both sides. We're at all-time highs. Usually don't make all-time highs in the overnights. Okay. So I would expect whatever the overnight high is today, I'd expect us to take it out. But let's do it. All right. There we go. New all-time highs right now. Boom. We're putting in a tail. All right. So we have a very balanced profile. All right. You can't keep thin, 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 and then you're just going to keep going higher. Okay. So what I would want to see, okay, if I'm a bull, is a couple things. You have the 65.24 right here, the most traded price of the overnight. You have to take this into account. Okay. If we do something like this, push up, market opens, comes back, that's your first test. Okay. This could easily be like boop boop, and we just start to dribble up. Okay. The next line would be a pullback to the gap fill. You could also get a pretty hold here and dribble up. All right, they're going to keep coming, folks. Then we can go back to yesterday's most traded price, 65.11. Also, can go up. And I would say all the way down to the overnight lows, 65.02s. This would have to be quick recovery like a this and literally like this. They're all bull scenarios. Okay? The last one I wouldn't be excited about. Okay? So, that's bull sides. Bear side. We have an all-time high, folks. All right? So, what I need to see, all right? Oof. Some heavy volume coming in right now. I don't know if you can hear those alarms going off. Those are large lots. Large lots hitting the tape. All right. Oof. Now, I'm not sure if that's the ES or it could be crude as well. Man. My God. Okay. Now, short side. I would want thin out. Right? Get some lower highs in there. Okay. Now, what I would say would be if you get some weakness up here, maybe the market's not strong, you're going to go down and test the most traded price of the overnight, 65.24s. Next stop is the gap fill, 65.16s. This is your real test here, 65.11s. If you take those out and the market starts going, blow off top, this could get really ugly. Take out the overnight lows, start to go back to the midpoint of yesterday, and we could find ourselves back at ultimate balance. You lose ultimate balance, wow, we could really drop. That's if a blow off top happens. I don't know if that happens. Like I said, I don't know. So, really the key is that 65.02s. Okay, so if it's conservative and you're just like, nope, I don't trust that. I need this. Well, you would have to look for this to break, and then for us to just start holding, accepting prices below here. Then I think you can get that move to 64.70. Okay, that's what I'm looking for in the ES. In the Nasdaq, remember we are not at all-time highs. We have a lot of overhead supply here, so I'm going to remove this supply. That's gone. All right, where's this supply? That supply is right there. We still have multiple supply zones ahead of us. We do have a high volume node around the 239, let's call it 30s, 239.30s. You can see the high volume node up here. You can see we're gapping up pretty big in the NASDAQ. All right. Okay, so that's a pretty large gap. Most traded price of the overnight, let's call it 237.80s. So we'll mark that off. This is last week's highs, so we're above last week's range. So I would say this is definite point to look for. Okay. Then you have a bunch of the stacked demands here. Usually don't see stacked demands like that. And you have our gap fill. So our gap fill is going to be right here. And I'm going to level that off here with all this demand. Okay. 50% retracement of yesterday's all the way down here. And you have the most traded price of the month, 236s. Okay. Now, if I'm looking right at the NASDAQ right now, there's a lot more strength to be had above the 236s. Like, this is all pullback territories to get long. The ES, I don't look at that as much like that. Remember, the NASDAQ was much weaker, and today, Broadcom and Tesla and stuff like that, Meta, all helping the markets. Nvidia and AMD, I don't know. I just think that Broadcom took a chunk out of their business, possibly. I don't know. Okay. So let's look at it. We got a very balanced profile now. It's pretty balanced. All right. That could mean the auction's complete. Okay. That's going to be in part of my video of my up trading video, my short from the other day. Okay. So we have supply right here. That's what we're in right now. We have more overhead supply that encompasses up here. That's a composite high volume node from the past. That's at 23930s right there. And a naked VPOC. That's just an untested most traded price of the day, a naked VPOC. Okay. They tend to get retested. So, how do we play this one? It's not easy. Not easy. Okay. So, again, big gap ups are not easy. Big gap ups are not easy. Let's get into scenarios. Start off with the bull side. We are not at all-time highs. Okay. We are right above last week's range. All right. So what I would want to see, if I want to get long, is some type of push to get rid of this supply zone, break it. Right. I don't know if I'd want it to come up here. I would probably want some failure to come back and retest last week's highs and the most traded price of the overnight. That's your 237.80s, and see if you can then now come up and hit the 23930s. Okay. After that, you got a resistance here. Most people probably have this down already, but let's just give it to you. 23963s. That could be the target. Okay, to the upside as well. Now, long sides. Okay. Any pullbacks, let's say we don't go too high, any pullbacks in this region, as long as you hold, gap fill can make its move. Any in this region. Okay? You do not want to lose. You don't want to fill that gap and start to take out the overnight lows. Because then 236 is here. Okay? This is a very bullish structure for the immediate term than the ES. Okay? We do have a lot of overhead supply. So I'm just trying to think. But you have to think, Nvidia and AMD are not getting love today. Broadcom is. So Apple's not even up. It's flat. Interesting. I think it makes it very difficult to know what's going to happen today. You don't have AMD, Nvidia, and Apple in this move. Microsoft's up 0.67. Okay. So that's what I'm seeing for longs. Now, shorts. Well, if I want to be short, right? This is a big gap, all right? Big gap, big gap. I'm gonna have to see it probably test the 23930s. So I might want a little gap and go, boom, come right to this major level. See what happens here. It might have to hit that resistance that I talked about, the 23963s, I think it was. And I would want to see it test this, fail, and start to push down. Okay. Starting to push down. Yeah, I see that, Chief. I was mentioning that earlier. I don't know if you were listening. You got lucky there. I think that Broadcom news, because otherwise it didn't look good for AMD yesterday, over 160, right? I believe the Broadcom earnings is affecting Nvidia and AMD, taking market share away from them. Um, so good for you holding on to it. So anyway, this is a short I think could happen, right? If the market comes up here and I'm like, wow, this is not that strong. Remember, if Nvidia is weak and Apple, Microsoft aren't joining the game, that's very hard for the market to go higher. So let's see if we can come all the way back down to last week's highs and then the 23780s. Okay, that could be the trade. And then maybe we range in here. Okay, you just don't go all out sell off after having that move. You might range in here. You might do this, try to go up, and then just kind of like do this into the weekend. Okay. Now, if it got weaker, and let's say this is a blow off top, and you're like, uh-oh, all right, that's the juice. The market wanted for cuts. The unemployment is now deteriorating. The employment is deteriorating. We priced in cuts already. Now let's see if this starts taking out this demand, which I said is going to be not easy. If you just take this out overnight lows, we're going down to 236s. Now, if you took out 236s, this is all out assault, and you're going back to 2P45s. Okay? I know what's going to happen. Okay? I don't know what is going to happen. Never do. So I have to see some type of, like I said, internals are going to drive everything for me today because I need to know what the market's capable of. All right? Remember, price action doesn't mean anything. The internals mean a lot because I've seen a lot of moves up. I see a lot of the moves go up, right? And then my internals are like, nah, these aren't strong. This is not a strong market. And then it will start to sell off. So that's what I want to look at when the market opens. I want weak internals or parity internals to be like, oh boy, this is not a strong market. Now remember, Nvidia is not in this move. AMD is not in this move. Apple is not in this move. Netflix, I didn't say before, has went to its expected move to the upside. Google, Broadcom has all hit its expected move to the upside. So I would say caution on too much exuberance. But like I said, this is very hard to read. I'm giving a lot of mixed signals, even listening to myself going, okay, you have this and then you have this. You try to weigh it out. Try to weigh it out. Okay? So, that is what's going on. All right? Hopefully, you enjoyed that analysis. Smash the like button if you did. That would help my channel out a lot. Okay? And as always, hopefully, you join me every morning. Give you the market story, market news, economic calendar, the leaders and the laggards, and why the market's doing what it's doing. Now, earlier, my number one fan, Rosita, wasn't here when I talked about AMD and NVIDIA weakness. And I said, that must be because of Broadcom's blowout deal with $10 billion, I think, with ChatGPT. Using their chips, going to create chips together. That's the only thing I can think it's going to take market share away from AMD and NVIDIA. That is causing a weakness. Now, yesterday, I was texting back and forth with Rosa, and I told her AMD over 160 is bullish, and once it reclaimed 160, it went up to almost 162. That was quite a recovery because AMD is at a key support level, the 158.25 is about. That is a key level. Also hitting the 50-day moving average. Okay, so this news catalyst from Broadcom is helping Rosita's puts. Otherwise, those puts were not good. They were not good. They did not look good. Okay, so that news catalyst, then earnings from Broadcom, taking market share away from Nvidia and AMD. Okay, that is what is pushing down those semis. That's the only thing I could think that makes sense. Okay, so like I said, craziness in these markets. Right now, as I'm speaking, Nasdaq keeps pushing. Now, what I will have to say about those AMD and the Nvidia, okay, it's at that key level almost now. The AMD, it's at like 158s. That is the key level. If it loses the 157.80s, that's like a monthly level. That is weak, right? And it takes it out. But if you look at the daily chart, if it really loses that level, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Or are people going to buy it? Don't know. Okay? Don't know. All right? Now, if you want the in-depth coverage, when I don't even know what I'm going to say today because I don't know how the market's going to be internally, right? You are going to want to sign up for my Discord, Confluence Trading. Okay? I am going to give you up-to-date live commentary on what I'm seeing under that hood. That's going to drive every decision I make. It does every day, but specifically today because there's so much cross current. There's so many conflicting things. Apple's not involved in this move. Microsoft's not really either. Right? Nvidia, AMD are down. Okay? So, it's going to be very interesting. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to go live today, but a couple of my community members are, if they are, I know one of them's not, particular guy from Singapore. I don't think he's going to be involved today. But I don't know if documents, right? I don't know if he had a barbecue again yesterday and he's getting up late. But maybe he's going to join. Maybe Rosita will be in there. Maybe Amalio. Maybe some of the guys that usually come and ladies that come into my room. Now, I can go live. I can go live. Anybody else listening, I can go live today. All right, I'll do live commentary. All right, we'll do this together. We'll look at everything together and put it all together. Okay. Now, the one thing I will have to say that's very key that I'm going to leave you with is the SPX. SPX. Okay. In one level in particular. Okay. One level in particular is. Let's get to the market internals here. SPX. Now, I track SPX gamma levels, okay? 6,500 right there is the largest gamma level for the monthlies in the SPX, for the monthly expiry. Big, big level. Obviously, it's over it now. All right? Just as I will see how that market reacts. Because we're in positive gamma again, which is usually buy the dip, sell the rip. Volatility goes down. Okay, that's generally what happens in a positive gamma environment. Okay, so everybody have a great day. Now, hopefully, I see you in my Discord. Use me as an indicator. Okay, and if not, everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see everybody on Monday morning.